Back, baby.
Pull back. Drop in and just smack the bah!
Well, folks, look at it. Are you looking?
Yes.
Okay, cool, thanks. This is the engine out of this car right here, a 1999 Porsche Carrera, a very, very tastefully spec'd Carrera, by the way, which is why it has gotten the nickname Tasty Tiptronic.
Oh, yum.
1, because it's tasty. 2, because it's a Tiptronic. And I don't want to hear any bad mouthing out of any of you guys about the fact that this is a Tiptronic. So none of that. Nope. No. This is such a tasty car. If you missed my overview of this thing in the first episode in this series, go back and watch it because there's the subtleties. I mean, it's just, there's stuff everywhere. If you did see that episode, you will know that this car basically has had just about everything you can think of done to this thing. I mean, it's about as cherry as a 996 911 can get. However, there was one thing that Joey had yet to do on this thing, and that is replace the timing chain guides, and that's exactly what we've been doing. We are just past the halfway point. As you can see, the engine is completely torn down, and I also went ahead and took the sump off to do a thorough cleaning of it because those timing chain guide bits always make their way down into the sump. So we just cleaned it up, made sure there weren't any remnants of those old guides. That is all put back together now. Off camera, I went ahead and did a bunch of cleaning to get all of the parts prepped and ready to go back on this engine. That's done, which means it's officially time to start putting this thing back together. So, should we do it? Let's do it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do assembly in the reverse of disassembly, meaning we're starting with bank 2 first. Let's go ahead and get cranking on this thing because we've got a lot of parts to put back on this engine. Let's do it. Well, everyone, here we are. Spring has sprung, the sun is out, and it is nice and warm outside. And to celebrate that, I have reintroduced to my website the old head and neck protector 5000, AKA my Fun Ahead TV straw hats. I have marked these things down 14% off on my website for a very, very limited time. These are an absolutely essential thing to have for all of your outdoor motorsports events this summer. Get them while they're hot. Thank you in advance for supporting the channel. I appreciate you so very much. Yes, you. Well, we now have both cylinder heads of this engine completely reassembled and retimed, which means we're done. No, we're not. We're not. We still have one more major thing to do, and that is the famous 720-degree check. Now, what does that mean, and why is it important? Well, this is, after all, a 4-stroke engine, which means it requires 2 revolutions of the crankshaft for an entire cycle of events to happen within this engine. Intake, compression, combustion, exhaust. And the cams, obviously, control all of the valve opening and closing events, so therefore, they spin at exactly half the rate of the crankshaft. So, we need to turn the crank 720 degrees in order to fully double check that everything is timed and reassembled properly. Why? Well, in the event that something is not timed properly, well, we'll have pistons meeting valves, of course. Let's go ahead and turn this engine 720 degrees. I do have the spark plugs out of it, so she'll turn nice and freely, and we can just check and make sure that everything feels good, moves smoothly, before we officially say this thing's good to go, and we put the final touches on it. Let's do it. All right, unlocking the crank for the very first time. We've got our 24mm socket here. We're locked and loaded. So, starting at the 0T position, let's start turning her. That was one turn. Nice, that felt very good. Motion of this engine so far is silky smooth. Let's do the final 360 degrees. So, thumbs up, stamp of approval. We can officially finish putting the final touches on this thing. Alrighty folks, it has actually been quite a while since I have filmed any kind of segments because I've been doing kind of a lot of behind the scenes work. I did a couple jobs for Joey that were kind of more very tedious and labor intensive and honestly would not be very entertaining whatsoever to film. So I just kind of did them behind the scenes. But I'll go ahead and explain those to you now. So one of which was I removed the intermediate shaft bearing solution that he has installed in this engine for two reasons. One, he wanted to have the flange seal replaced because Ellen Engineering's flange seals are not the greatest material and they tend to fail very quickly. The main thing that he wanted to do was be able to get some more clearance to the oil line that goes up into the IMS solution. When you install the IMS solution, you have to cut a little shape out of the flange that goes between the engine and the transmission in order for that line to run up and in there. Well, whoever installed the IMS solution for Joey didn't cut a big enough hole to be able to get a wrench on the fitting. So I ended up taking that out so we could make a little bit more space for him. So if he wanted to, or if he needed to, he could get a wrench up and on that. The other thing that we did was we did some repairs on the cylinder heads. Now that sounds kind of weird and ominous. So I had mentioned this in a previous video, but I think 10 out of 12 of the exhaust manifold bolts have some sort of thread repair in those holes. Whoever did the job utilized helicoils. One of the holes was completely just gone. It had an old helicoil repair inside of it, but it had just been completely ripped out and I don't think it was installed all that well. Reason being, on that particular hole, it's very, very hard to access because it's very close to the side of the cylinder head that has the secondary oil pump. And so you just really don't have a lot of room in there to work. I went ahead and drilled that out and then I put in a time cert, which is basically a more beefy way to do thread replacement. Good news is that is nice and tidied up now. We have both exhaust manifolds back on the engine. They're on there really solidly. So with those jobs completed, that means we are officially in the home stretch of this project. I need to put the exhaust back on and then we can take the engine back off the stand and mate it back up with the transmission and then we can start getting it back up in the car. So we're gonna go ahead and start by installing that exhaust. Joey has decided to put back on the stock cats. He had a FabSpeed X pipe on this engine with cats. However, the FabSpeed pipe only has 200 cell cats for better performance and he was getting occasional check engine lights for inadequate catalytic converter performance. And he really doesn't do much track work where he requires the extra power that the FabSpeed pipe provides. So he just decided to go back together with the original to avoid getting the occasional check engine light. Hi. Yes, I know, I have not been the greatest at filming things. But anyway, hey, look at this. The engine and transmission are so. Yeah. Well, all right, friends. As you just saw, we have the engine and transmission right back up in Joey's super tasty Tiptronic. So being that we are at kind of a decent stopping point with this thing being preliminarily installed into the car, I'm going to go ahead and call it for today, but not for this video. This video is still very much going on. It's about 5:15, I gotta go do some family stuff. But tomorrow morning, I'm gonna be picking up with plugging everything in that we need to do for the very first start. Fuel lines, electrical connectors, all of the fluids. That'll pretty much be about it, just as far as the first start goes. Well, hi. So, I've been making so much progress. I got everything basically on the bottom side of the car, bundled up, good to go for the very first start. I did go ahead and throw everything together on the upper side as well. I have not put the airbox back in, obviously, but everything else should be bundled down and ready to go. Anyway, we are in the process of putting fluids back in this super tasty Tiptronic. I currently have the cooling system sucked down to vacuum. I had a vacuum on it for probably about 15 minutes to get it real nice and sucked. And it is currently holding steady at minus 0.89 bar. That indicates that, at least preliminarily, we have no leaks in the cooling system after reinstallation. So that's very good. I'm gonna let this sit for just a few more minutes just to be thorough. I did already go ahead and just hook up the battery for like 2 seconds and key on, not crank it, but just key on to make sure that we don't have any kind of transmission errors. Obviously with a Tiptronic vehicle, you don't just have electronic connectors going to the engine, you have engine and transmission to consider. So I just wanted to make sure that everything looked good on the transmission side of things, and fortunately, it did not throw any errors. Those connectors are a little bit harder to get to, so that's why I say what I say. So, yeah, it has still not moved, which is very, very nice. I need to mix up some coolant, and then we can get to sucking. I'm gonna not ever say that again. Okay, she's still holding steady at minus 0.89 bar of vacuum in the cooling system. That has been the case for, about 20 minutes now. So obviously we are good to go with regards to any amount of leaks in the system, so it seems. Therefore, it's officially time to go ahead and do the most satisfying thing of all time and slurp up 5 gallons of coolant back into the system. Let's do it. Yoink. Okay, I just went ahead and put power steering fluid in the car up to the proper level. And as you can see, I reinstalled the airbox. Last thing to do is go ahead and throw some oil in this bad boy. And Joey has requested to use this Driven DT40 racing oil. This is that Joe Gibbs oil. Supposedly this is really, really good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and get the filling, and then very next step after this is turning that key. Just saying. Whew. All right, here it is, the very first start. I just finished getting the oil all up to the proper level for the very first start. And of course, as you saw, coolant is up to the level as well, and I did power steering fluid. So, should be good with regards to fluids, and electrical connectors, and fuel lines, and ground wires, and yeah, everything with regards to the first start should be all set. Everything's ready. The only thing left to do is go ahead and turn that key. See what happens. Checking oil one more time before we go. Okay, that's good. So keep in mind, you will probably hear some cranking because we don't yet have fuel pressure built, or maybe we do, I don't know. I've cycled the key several times, so it's possible that it has built. We might see a little bit of blue smoke coming out of the tailpipes because of course we've had the engine turned every which way, so it's very possible that we've gotten a little bit of oil up in one of the combustion chambers, which will burn off right on this first start. And we'll hear some ticking because we have brand new lifters in this engine, of course. So, all that being said, let's just see what happens. Oh yeah, she fired right off. So we had definitely built fuel pressure. Oil is up to pressure, which is nice. Sounds good. Remember, this engine does have that gunned hack exhaust system, so that's why this exhaust is so loud. It's got that pipe that connects from the catalytic converter to just the outlet, so it has like a little bit of a muffler bypass. Man, this thing sounds solid. Okay, successful first start, people. Feels really, really good. I'm gonna go ahead and check our oil real quick, make sure that our level is back up to where it needs to be, because no doubt it just got stuck down probably in the order of a couple quarts. And then I'm gonna fire it back up and let it run until the coolant gets up to temp. All right, well, good news. This thing has been running for the better part of about 15 minutes now. Everything is up to temp, at least the coolant is. I think the oil is still kind of getting there. Our idle oil pressure is coming down slowly, but for the most part, it's looking good. Everything has come up to temperature very nicely. We have warm air coming out of our vents, which means we do in fact have hot coolant flowing up through our heater core. Very good sign. And man, this thing sounds impeccable. That initial ticking from our brand new lifters is starting to subside a little bit. I can just hear like a tiny, tiny hint of it still. The coolant is officially I would say right up at the thermostat temperature. Just put on some headphones, close your eyes, and enjoy the Flat 6 Symphony. That's some smooth jazz for you folks, some smooth jazz. Okay, well, I just shut her off after running for roughly about 20 minutes. Everything I would say officially got up to temperature, which is nice. And you guys heard that delicious sound just moving about your eardrums. Well, hi there, party folk. It is officially time for the first drive with Joey's super tasteful Tiptronic. So, just to preface, this is going to be the actual first cold start since getting everything back together. Of course, yesterday we did the first start with the engine being back up in the car for the very first time. That was yesterday. The car has since come back down to temperature entirely, and every single time I have jumped into this car, my left foot has gone straight to the floor. Again, not hating on the fact this is a Tiptronic. I'm just used to climbing in a Porsche and pushing down on the clutch pedal, but she's not there. Okay, so let's see what happens. Powering up, doing a quick oil check. Yep, oil level is perfect. Auto. All right, let's see how she does. Sounds great. Oil pressure is up to pressure. Nice. All sounds good preliminarily. The other thing I wanted to do a quick check of was quick in and out of gear check. Okay. Cool. Okay, she's been idling here for, I don't know, a couple minutes and has idled down. Okay, now I have plowed my driveway, but this is just a two-wheel drive Porsche and there's still probably about an inch of snow on the ground. So I'm really hoping that I don't get stuck on the way out of here. We will see. All right, let's set off. Roads are a little bit wet and a little salty, but not awful. All right, we are off. Doing 50 miles an hour right now. So far, so good. Everything sounds and feels good. Transmission is shifting nicely. Good. Yeah, I think this is gonna be basically a very abbreviated test drive. I'm gonna try and get the engine coolant up to temperature as much as I possibly can. That being said, I'm not gonna do my normal like 8-ish mile test drive. It's just a little bit too crummy out and I really don't wanna get Joey's car just absolutely covered in salt. But obviously we need to drive it, make sure everything is good and feels good before we give it back to him. So kind of a little bit of a catch-22 there. All right, so far so good. We have a little bit of temp up in the coolant so far. This is just one of my test drive roads. It's kind of a crappy little 1.5 lane B road. They do plow it, but they don't salt it. So it's kind of a perfect situation for what we need to do. So we're not gonna get Joey's car covered in road salt all along the bottom. Man, it is a crummy day for a test drive. So admittedly, I haven't spent a whole heck of a lot of time in Tiptronics over the years. That being said, they seem like they're really nice cars. I mean, obviously, it's a Porsche, but you know, I get it and I dig it. Like, they drive very smoothly. If you're someone who just wants to drive it to and from work and not have to fuss with the third pedal and changing gears all the time, and if you're gonna be potentially sitting in traffic a lot, then what better way to do that than with an automatic transmission? And honestly, the Tiptronic is not a bad way to go. All right, so back out on the main road. She feels really good, you guys. This thing is such a nice car. Again, I totally get it. The Tiptronic thing, if you're cruising along and just want to enjoy the vehicle, get from A to B, this is absolutely the transmission to do it with. Yeah, she feels great. Man, what a not ideal day to test drive, but hey, we are just pulling right back into my house, so I'll talk to you guys in just a second. She's back. I'm back. We're here. As you just saw, we just completed the first successful test drive since putting the engine back up in Joey's super tasty Tiptronic. I did just go ahead and pull it back in the lift really quick and put it up in the air to just double check, make sure we don't have any fluids coming out the bottom. She is bone dry. That means that this thing officially receives the stamp of completion, stamp of approval. It is ready to go back out the door and go back home to Joey. I cannot reiterate enough how thankful I am to be able to work on these absolutely magnificent vehicles. I love it so much. And Joey, thank you so much for trusting me with your vehicle. So with that, another water-cooled restoration is officially done and in the history books. This has been a fun one. If you are in the Midwest and you have a water-cooled Porsche that needs anything from an oil change all the way up to an entire engine rebuild, please consider utilizing water-cooled restoration to have that service done. That's the name of my company, and you can email info@watercooledrestoration.com to contact me directly to inquire about pricing and scheduling. Or, because you're a viewer of Fun Ahead TV, you can also email me at funaheadtvofficial@gmail.com. That's the perk of watching Fun Ahead TV. You can email me at 2 different email addresses. What? So the entire mission of water-cooled restoration is to provide expert Porsche service at a very reasonable price. Just because not many shops do this kind of work, it does not give us the right to just absolutely take you to the cleaners. So if you enjoyed this project, please do me a huge favor and hit that thumbs up button, and please subscribe to see even more awesome videos of projects like this coming down the pipeline to you via Fun Ahead TV every single week. Thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Yes, you. I'm looking right at you. And I'll see you all in the next video. Later.
Pull back. Drop in and just smack the lip.